Mr. Cambridge question and suggested solution. The Mr. Cambridge question and solution is dealt with in 3 video tutorials. In the first video tutorial we discussed the question and our approach to it. This is the second video tutorial which deals with the part A of the solution, which is the preparation of the income statement. In the first video tutorial we reviewed the question. We discussed the different elements that appear in the trial balance, and we discussed the adjustments and how we deal with them. Now we will look at producing the income statement for the year ended 30th of June 2010. Do remember, an income statement is for the year ended. So starting off, we're going to produce now the income statement. The income statement is made up of basically 2 components, the trading account and the profit and loss account. Both the trading account and the profit and loss account are part of the income statement, but we will just construct them separately. We will start off with the trading account. You should know a trading account off by heart. A trading account is made up of the sales, and then from that you subtract the cost of sales. The cost of sales itself is made up of opening inventory plus the purchases less the closing inventory. So the cost of sales, made up of these components here, is taken away from the sales figure to give us our gross profit. There can be other things in the cost of sales, such as carriage in and return and so on, but they don't appear in this particular question. So what we need to do now is that we need to go back to the trial balance and get what we need: the sales, the opening inventory, the purchases, and the closing inventory. So we go back here, we can see there's the sales, there's the purchases, here's the opening inventory, and if you look here, the additional information here, there is the closing inventory. So back here, what we need to do is fill in our numbers. I'm going to put my trading account, my sales account over here in the right hand column, and then I will step in here and I will work out the cost of sales figure. I'll just remove these and I'll pop in the numbers. So I'll put my sales over here on the extreme right hand column, and then in here I'll work out my cost of sales, my opening inventory plus my purchases, and I'll add those 2 together. I'll take away my closing inventory and I will bring the total figure out and line it up underneath my sales figure. So I'll have my sales less my cost of sales figure, and that will give my gross profit. So in this case here, my gross profit is 152,600. Now I'm going to continue straight on down. So this part here of the income statement is referred to as the trading account, and I go straight on into the profit and loss account part of the income statement. So there's no break. I'm going to take this bit here and put it on the top of the next page. So if I just turn over to the next page, I'm continuing exactly where I stopped off with my gross profit of 152,600. I am now going to list my expenses. So it is gross profit less expenses. And my expenses will be, well, if we go back to our trial balance, we can see earlier on we discussed the expenses, and we discussed that these items here make up the expenses. But we also note that an adjustment on the heat and light and on the insurance. So I list my expenses here exactly as I find them: the rates, the wage and salaries, the light and heat, and a little asterisk on there to remind me to make the adjustment. I have the insurance, I have the motor expenses, and I have the bank charges. Now they are the expenses from the trial balance, but if we just go back and look at the additional information here, we see we have to put in the depreciation as well. We have depreciation on the equipment, fixtures and fittings, and the motor vehicles. Now it says the depreciation is on a straight line basis at the indicated rates. So on the equipment it's 10% on the original cost. On the fixtures and fittings it's 5% on the original cost. And on the motor vehicles it's 20% on the original cost. So just moving back to the trial balance, you can see here, there's the equipment at cost, there's the fixtures and fittings at cost, and there's the motor vehicles at cost. So I'll be getting percentages of each of those figures and popping them in here as my expenses. So I have depreciation of equipment, depreciation of fixtures and fittings, and depreciation of the motor vehicles. When I have all my expenses in, I'll add them up, I'll take them away, and I'll get my net profit. So my expenses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them up in this column here, list them all the way down here, making the adjustments as necessary, adding them all up at the end, and taking away from my gross profit. So if I just pop in my expenses here, I have the rates, wages and salaries. Now the light and heat has an adjustment on it, and the adjustment is an accrual, which means the amount, the expense was incurred but hasn't been paid yet. So it has to be added on. So it'll be the 6,000 plus the 500. The insurance, well, now that is a prepayment, so I need to take that amount away. So therefore it's the 5,000 that was paid less the 1,000, which means the 1,000 is for next year. So the expense for this year is 4,000. The motor expenses and the bank charges, just pop in there. And then the depreciation. So the depreciation in the equipment, we're told that the depreciation in the equipment is 10% on a straight line basis, which means it's 10% on the cost, and the cost is 64,000. So the figure that appears in here would be 64,000 at 10%, 6,400. Likewise for the fixtures and fittings, it will be the percentage that we're given, which is 5% on the fixtures and fittings at cost, which is 15,000. So 15,000 at 5% gives us 750. And then motor vehicles, cost is 18,000 and the depreciation is 20%. 18,000 at 20% gives us 3,600. Now I'll add all these up, bring them out and line them up underneath my gross profit, and then I'll take it away to get my net profit figure. So my net profit figure is 88,550. That is the income statement completed. In the next video tutorial, we'll look at the statement of financial position.